Gates Adams here on behalf of Apex Trader Funding, and I'm here today with Yves, and I just want to congratulate you on your recent payout. Obviously, that's why we have you on here as a paid funded trader with Apex Trader Funding. So first and foremost, now, is this your first payout or is this one of several?
This is my first with Apex,
okay.
But I've had several with other firms in the past, but this is my first payout with Apex. I'm pretty excited about it.
So how long have you actually been trading at this point?
Oh man, Gates, I've been in the game for a while because, okay, I'll get to it quickly and then I'll give you the long story. We got a little bit of time.
Sure.
So I've been trading since 2010.
Oh, wow, okay.
But I actually started as a long-term investor, and then my cousin and I were interested in options. So I started actually as an options trader.
Okay.
And I did that for about 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But futures, I've been in the futures market for a year and a half.
How did that transition come to you? Did you eliminate options and move to futures, or do you still dabble? Or I mean, how does that work for you?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I'm very conservative, and most of my options trader buddies in the past were not as risk averse as I was.
Right.
So I got into I saw these huge swings, but that made me nervous because I knew that it could swing the opposite way too. So I got into debit spreads.
Okay.
Where I had an idea of what I could lose and how much I can gain, and that actually pushed me into the Forex market. But then also Forex just seemed a little bit of a space that was the wild, wild west.
Sure.
And a mentor of mine actually introduced me to options about 2 years ago. I was still hesitant, but then I transferred my skills or my viewpoint on price action to the futures market, and it just became so much easier when I realized I didn't have to fight decaying time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So.
That's made all the difference.
That brings up a good question, and I do ask this a lot because I think it's pertinent for a lot of traders trying to figure out which direction to go. So you've traded options, you've traded Forex, you've traded futures now, and you specifically mentioned price action. Has your read on the markets, have you had to make significant adjustments to how you trade based on what instruments you're trading, or have you found that there's a lot of similarity and a lot of confluence between options, futures, Forex, and being able to trade with the same knowledge and experience?
Well, I do think one informs the other, really. With options, I do think that my viewpoint, I was a swing trader then when it came to options, but now I'm a day trader more so. So I went from having like a macro view of the market and to really honing down on price action taking place within a few hours of the day. So it really made me get a little more disciplined in the way that I approach the market and my entries as well. But really, one informed the other. I really don't regret my time as an options trader because I really had to look at price and where it was going over the long term, like drawing liquidity over the long term. But I really needed to hone that down in order to be able to make the same amount of gains, but within a day or over the time span of a month.
So the biggest, I guess, the biggest structure change really was more time frame versus instrument.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Exactly. Because really, I only trade NQ. So in the past, I traded NAS 100, and then in the options world, I've always been on SPY.
Gotcha.
or the Qs.
Gotcha.
So I'm familiar with that world. I'm familiar with those instruments and on the events that take place that move, that instrument. It's always been familiar to me and comfortable to me. But I think really futures simplified my process and taught me to be a little more disciplined and even more conservative than I was in the past.
There you go. Well, when that's the route that you're choosing to go, that's obviously a good move. And obviously there's the opportunity for Wild Wild West if you want it, but I think most of us, especially when we're talking the lower time frames, really start to land on, I just want that consistent, disciplined, that's ultimately what's going to pay off in the long run. So how did you happen upon Apex? How did you end up as an Apex trader?
I get this all the time. I'm always skeptical, and I would get stuck in the research phase for so long. But I came upon a few YouTubers and their instructional videos on their onboarding process to Apex. and I looked into it myself, and it just seemed to be one of the more professional firms. It had the highest payouts. I really enjoyed that they listed the payouts on the bottom of the site when you scroll down.
Right.
So that made it a bit more realistic for me as well, instead of just having like a leaderboard of their superstars, let's say, right? This made it much more realistic for me. And I decided to jump on with one account and just to trade my strategy. With that, overall, it was just research, YouTube, university,
Sure.
and then and just doing my own personal research just to jump in and figure out where the right place to go was for my needs.
Now, you obviously have gone through different phases in your trading career, and obviously you've gone through the phase where you were funding your own trading and now operating as a funded trader. What would you say is the biggest difference for you, or the biggest differences for you in the way that you approach trading based on being a funded trader versus funding your own action?
You know, Gates, there is something to be said about having like autonomy, right? When you're trading your own funds, but then also like really the reason one would go for having a funded account is leverage at the end of the day. You know, I really want the power of a $50,000 account, let's say, and to be able to use the amount of risk that I normally use, but to have a gain that's outsized from my personal account.
Right.
I still do have, a personal account as well in the future side of things, but really it's just to have the amount of leverage that I normally wouldn't be able to access. I still work a job. I love what I do, but I do not have the amount of funds where I'd be able to fund and to match what Apex would give me in, let's say, 5 accounts. I think that this is really important, and it's working out for me so far.
Absolutely. And I think that that's an important point. The two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. I have a lot of buddies that trade in a funded account and that trade their own funds. They're different tools, and they're used and utilized differently. You're not going to use a screwdriver for what you would use a hammer for, and vice versa. And I think a lot of times it's really, each side has its own set of benefits, and being able to capitalize on them to the best of your ability, there's advantages to both. So I appreciate you sharing that.
It's true, Gates. Sometimes there are accounts that I choose to step on the gas a little bit with. There are others where I'm really trying to preserve capital. Overall, the name of the game is preserving capital.
Sure.
But at times, I'll use an account to experiment with as well. And again, I'm on TradingView, so they do have a paper trading account. But at times, psychologically, if I need to step away from the market, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I'll go and sit down in front of like a paper trading account, or one of these smaller Apex accounts, and start to just really test my strategy and figure out, wait a minute, is it me? Is it the strategy? Is it the market right now? Right. But I'm still sitting down at my desk at the same time every day. That at least a day that I'm at home and on my workstation. And I'll be able to work these things out. And that helps keep me sharp. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely valuable insight and just a great story. I love hearing trader stories. One of the big reasons that I do this. It's very inspiring to me, and hopefully to other traders who have the opportunity to see this. And I appreciate you sharing your story with us. I'd love to catch up with you in a few months, kind of see how everything's going, and do a little update with you if that sounds good.
Definitely, that sounds good. Listen, we have to talk, Gates. We have to talk more, man. I would love to continue chatting with you, man.
Absolutely. Well, man, I appreciate you hanging out with me today, and we're absolutely going to have to catch up, and we'll see you on the next one when we get an update from you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
You got it. We'll talk to you soon.